He called me Mr. Hale at intake, and the social worker's eyes flicked to my wrist like she'd seen the name engraved on a courthouse wall. The shelter in downtown Phoenix smelled like bleach and old coffee, the kind that sits on a hot plate too long and turns bitter. The lobby had plastic chairs bolted to the floor and a TV mounted high, volume low, subtitles on. A place designed to keep people waiting without giving them anything to hold on to. I'd been inside courtrooms that cost more per square foot than this whole building. I'd signed deeds, drafted bylaws, settled disputes with a pen instead of a raised voice. None of that showed here. Here, I was a man with a duffel bag, a limp that came with age, and a folder of papers tucked under my arm like it was the last thing in my name. They told the neighbors I'd gone somewhere safe. They told my church I was confused. They told my grandson I was resting. And they told themselves, most of all, that I'd finally become manageable. I didn't correct any of it. I let them. The intake desk was behind thick glass with a cutout at the bottom, like a bank that only handled withdrawals. The woman at the window, Maya, the tag said, asked for my ID. I slid it through. Her fingers paused on the card. Hale, she read, and for a fraction of a second her calm face cracked like someone had touched a bruise. I watched that moment and filed it away. First name? She asked, voice returning to neutral. Thomas, I said. She looked up at me then, really looked. Not the way people do when they're scanning for trouble. Her gaze went to my hands, the clean nails, the plain gold ring I still wore even after my wife died, the folder, organized, tabbed. Then to my eyes. Any immediate medical needs? She asked. No. Any threats? She tried next, careful, like she was asking about a person standing behind me. Not here, I said. That earned another flicker. She typed. The keyboard clicks sounded too loud in the lobby, like the building itself was listening. She printed a form, slid it through the cutout, and handed me a pen. Sign at the bottom. Rules acknowledgement. I read the rules, not because I needed to, but because reading is a kind of control when you've had control taken from you. No alcohol. No violence. Curfew. No weapons. Mandatory case check-ins. At the bottom was a line about voluntary placement and consent to information sharing with partner agencies. My daughter-in-law, Denise, had always loved that phrase, partner agencies. It sounded like community when it meant surveillance. I set the pen down. I'll sign the rules, I said, tapping the curfew line, but not the information release. Maya's eyes went wide for half a breath. We usually. I don't, I said. She hesitated, then reached for another form, the version that didn't include the blanket release. Her fingers moved quicker than necessary, like she was trying to keep me from changing my mind. She slid it through. Thank you, she said, but it didn't sound like gratitude. It sounded like relief. I signed, and when I slid the paper back, she leaned closer to the glass, lowering her voice. Mr. Hale, she said, did your family put you here? My daughter had cried when she did it. Not loud crying, neat crying, the kind that looks good in front of witnesses. They think they did, I said. Maya held my gaze like she wanted to say something more, but the lobby door opened and a young man walked in, sweating through his shirt, eyes darting. Maya's professional face snapped back into place. Room assignment, she said, pushing a keycard and a laminated map through the cutout. Second floor. Bed 21. I took the card and map. As I turned away, she spoke again, quieter. I knew a Judge Hale once, she said. He used to say, a signature is a confession with better handwriting. I paused just long enough to let her know I'd heard. Then I kept walking, because the first thing you do when people think you've lost is let them believe it long enough to get careless. Upstairs, the dormitory was rows of metal-framed beds with thin mattresses covered in plastic. The air was cold from an overworked AC unit. Men lay on beds staring at nothing, or sat with their backs against the wall like they were trying to disappear into it. I'd been raised in a house where you didn't waste words, didn't waste food, didn't waste opportunities. I'd also been raised with a simple rule: never make your problem someone else's entertainment. So I made myself small. Bed 21 was near the back, close enough to the bathroom that the smell drifted over when the door opened. I put my duffel on the mattress, sat down, and listened. The shelter had its own rhythm. Someone coughing, someone laughing too loud, a television downstairs playing a cooking show to people who hadn't eaten since morning. I could have been angry. I was, in the same way a storm is angry, quiet until it decides not to be. But anger wasn't useful yet. Anger made you predictable. Anger made you speak when you should listen. I reached into my duffel and pulled out my folder. Inside were copies of my ID, my social security card, my bank statements, the deed to my home, and one page that mattered more than the rest. A beneficiary designation form. Unsigned. Denise had taken me to the bank 3 weeks ago, smiling like she was doing a good deed, saying the words slowly, like she thought I needed help to understand them. Dad, we just need to make sure everything's set up, so no one can take advantage of you. Her concern had been perfectly rehearsed. The kind of concern that plays well in front of a notary. My daughter, Lisa, sat beside her, eyes red, nodding along. She didn't speak much anymore when Denise was in the room. She'd become a person who let someone else talk for her. My son, Eric, hadn't come. He'd been at work. He always was lately. Denise had slid the form across the desk and pointed at the line. Just sign, and we'll handle the rest. I'd looked at the form and seen my retirement account listed, my brokerage, the one I'd built over 40 years of work, investments, and not spending money to impress strangers. The beneficiary line had already been filled in. Denise Hale. Primary. Lisa Hale. Secondary. Eric Hale. Tertiary. My grandson, Noah, not listed at all. I'd looked up at Denise and said, "This isn't right." She'd laughed lightly, like I told a harmless joke. "Dad, it's just easier. We're family." That was the first betrayal. Not the form itself. The assumption that I wouldn't read it. The assumption that my age made me blind. I'd slid the form back to her and said, "I'll take it home and review." Denise's smile had held, but her eyes had sharpened. "Of course," she'd said. "Take your time." 2 days later, she'd called Adult Protective Services. She'd told them I was paranoid. She'd told them I didn't trust my own children. She told them I was making irrational financial decisions. She didn't mention that the irrational decision, in her mind, was refusing to sign my money over to her. The APS worker who came to my house had been young, polite, and clearly tired. He'd asked me if I felt safe. He'd asked if I knew the date. He'd asked if I understood what a beneficiary was. I answered calmly. Denise sat on my couch, hands folded, tears ready like a stage actor waiting for a cue. Lisa stood behind her like a shadow. When the worker asked if I had anyone to help me manage my finances, Denise leaned forward. "We're just worried," she said. "He's been different since Mom passed." My wife had been dead 2 years. Denise was good with timelines as long as the audience didn't check them. The worker looked at me and gave me a sympathetic half-smile. "Sometimes families need support," he said. "We can recommend services. Temporary placement, if you feel overwhelmed." "I'm not overwhelmed," I said. Denise's hand touched Lisa's arm, a small squeeze. Lisa began to cry. Quietly, neatly. The worker shifted in his chair. "Sir," he said, "maybe it's not a bad idea to take a break. Let your family help." I'd seen juries swayed by less. I'd watched men lose everything because they underestimated how persuasive a practiced lie could be when it came wrapped in concern. So I nodded slowly and said, "Maybe a few days." Denise exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath. "I'll pack a bag," she said quickly. That was the second betrayal. Not that she packed, that she'd already decided where I was going. She'd driven me here herself, smiling the whole way, talking about how this was temporary, how I'd like it, how the staff would keep me on track. When we arrived, she'd walked me inside, kissed my cheek in front of the desk, and told Maya, "Thank you for taking him. We're just so worried." Then she'd left. She didn't look back. Now, sitting on the thin mattress, I thought about that kiss. The way her perfume lingered, for a second on my skin like a brand. She wanted to be seen as the devoted daughter-in-law. She wanted the story to be simple. Old man declines, family steps in, everyone's safe. She didn't realize that in the middle of her performance, she'd handed me something far more valuable than sympathy. Time. Time to prepare. Time to move quietly. Time to let her confidence grow until it made her careless. On the wall near the dorm entrance was a bulletin board with flyers for legal aid, veterans resources, and financial counseling. One flyer had a name at the bottom: Carmen Ruiz, J.D. Free legal clinic, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I checked the date on my phone. Thursday, 2 days away. And then my phone buzzed with a text. From Lisa. We love you. Please cooperate. Denise is trying to help. Don't make this harder. A second text followed, this one from Denise. We're doing this for your own good. The sooner you sign what we discussed, the sooner you can come home. There it was. The third betrayal. The condition. Home as leverage. A place I owned. Treated like a privilege they could grant or revoke. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then I slid the phone into my pocket and lay back on the mattress, staring at the ceiling tiles. 14 days, I thought. They didn't know it yet, but they'd started a clock. Because Denise had filed something else while she was busy kissing my cheek for the audience. A petition for emergency guardianship. I'd found the draft on the printer at home before she'd helped pack my bag. She wasn't careful. People like her rarely are. She'd printed it, then gotten distracted by her own urgency. The petition had a hearing date. 2 weeks from Monday. 14 days. If she won, she could control my finances, my residence, even my medical choices. She could force the beneficiary change through court-approved management. She could sell my house for my care. She could isolate me in a facility where no one would ask if I wanted to leave. That was her plan, and it was clean enough to look legal. But clean paperwork doesn't mean clean hands. I closed my eyes and pictured Denise at my kitchen table, pen in hand, signing her name on my checks for convenience, the way she'd been doing since my wife died. She thought I hadn't noticed. She thought my quietness was surrender. It wasn't. It was inventory. The next morning, I went downstairs early, before breakfast, before the lobby filled with noise. The shelter had a small computer room with 6 old desktops and a sign that said 30 minutes limit. A volunteer sat at a desk, drinking from a thermos, reading a paperback. I signed up for a slot. When my turn came, I logged into my email and requested digital copies of my bank statements. Then I logged into the county recorder's site and pulled the most recent deed to my home. Still in my name. Good. Then I pulled the documents for the LLC that owned the small strip of rental units I'd bought 10 years ago. The real asset. The one Denise didn't talk about because she didn't know it existed. My wife had called it my quiet money. 3 small storefronts rented to boring businesses, an insurance broker, a nail salon, a tax preparer. Predictable income. Low drama. I'd put the property into an LLC for liability reasons. I'd never told Denise because she never asked questions that weren't about herself. Lisa knew vaguely. Eric knew once, before he stopped paying attention to anything that wasn't urgent. Denise didn't know, and that LLC had an operating agreement, one I drafted with a real attorney back when I still believed my family would never turn on me. The agreement had rules about transfer of membership interests. It had rules about management. It had rules about removal. And it had one clause that mattered now more than ever. In the event of incapacity proceedings, management automatically shifted to the named successor manager until a court determined otherwise. Successor manager. My name was listed as manager. The successor manager was not Denise. It was Noah, my grandson. At 25, he was young enough to be dismissed by Denise as irrelevant, and smart enough to learn quietly when you handed him responsibility. I'd made him successor manager 2 years ago after he helped me renegotiate a tenant lease that would have cost me thousands. Denise thought Noah was sweet but unambitious. She liked people she could step over. She had no idea that legally, he was already standing in line behind me, hand on the baton. I printed the operating agreement and folded it into my folder. Then I checked my voicemail. One message. Denise, again, voice soft and trembling, like she was speaking to a nurse. Dad, I just want you to know we're praying for you. But the lawyer said if you don't sign the beneficiary forms, we may have to take further steps to protect you. Please don't force us. Call me. The lawyer said. Of course, she'd brought a lawyer into it. People like Denise collect professionals the way other people collect handbags. Something to show off. Something to hide behind. I didn't call her. I didn't respond. I let her sit with her own echo. That afternoon, Maya found me in the cafeteria, standing by the coffee urn, stirring black coffee I didn't intend to drink. "Mr. Hale," she said quietly, "do you have family contact listed?" "Yes," I said. She hesitated, then spoke faster, like she decided she'd rather risk her job than watch something wrong happen. "I saw a note in the system," she said. "They called. Your daughter-in-law. She asked if you'd been cooperative." I looked at her. "And what did you say?" Maya's jaw tightened. "I said you were following the rules," she said. "Nothing else." "Good," I said. Her eyes held mine. "Are you okay?" she asked, but what she meant was, "Are you being trapped?" I took a sip of the coffee. It was burnt and thin. "I'm not in danger," I said. "I'm in a lesson." Maya's face didn't change much, but something softened behind her eyes. "If you need a phone," she said, "the staff office has one that doesn't record calls." I almost smiled. "Almost. Thank you," I said instead. "But I prefer records." She frowned. "Records protect the right person," I said. That night my bed neighbor, a man with cracked hands and a worn baseball cap, asked why I was here. "Family," I said. He snorted once, a sound without humor. "Family will put you in the ground and ask you to apologize for bleeding." I looked at him. "What's your name?" "Ray," he said. "Thomas," I replied. Ray nodded at my folder. "You got papers," he said. "You don't belong here." I didn't argue. Belonging was a concept for people who still believed they'd be treated fairly if they just explained themselves. I'd explained myself plenty in my life. Now I prepared. 2 days later, on Thursday, I walked to the legal clinic room with my folder under my arm. Carmen Ruiz was in her 40s, hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp behind rectangular glasses. She had the posture of someone who'd spent years sitting across from people who thought volume was leverage. She didn't waste time. "Name?" she asked. "Thomas Hale." Her pen paused. "Hale," she repeated. I waited. She leaned back slightly, studying me. Not my clothes. Not my age. Me. "My father clerked for Judge Hale," she said. "Maricopa County. Long time ago." I nodded once. "My brother," I said. Carmen's eyes widened just a fraction. "Your brother was Judge Hale?" she asked. "He was," I said. "He's gone now." Carmen looked down at my folder. "What are you doing here?" she asked, and there was no pity in it, only focus. I opened my folder and slid out the guardianship petition draft. Her eyes moved quickly over the pages. "Emergency guardianship," she said quietly. "Filed by." "Not filed yet," I corrected. "Drafted." Carmen's brows lifted. "You have the draft before filing." "She printed it at my house," I said. "She's not careful." Carmen exhaled through her nose. "And you're here because they put you in this shelter while they prepare to claim you can't manage your own affairs." "Yes." Carmen tapped her pen on the paper once, like she was marking a beat in her mind. "Do you have assets?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you have capacity?" she asked, eyes on mine. "Yes." "And do you have someone you trust?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. Trust was expensive. I'd spent most of mine already. "My grandson," I said finally. Carmen nodded. "Good," she said, "because here's what we're going to do." I watched her face as she spoke, calm and precise. She explained the process. Guardianship hearings, evidence, medical evaluations, the way courts get swayed by concerned family, unless you bring documentation and credible witnesses. Then she looked at me hard. "You need a ticking clock," she said, "because if they file and get an emergency order, they can freeze accounts before you can blink." "I know," I said. Carmen's gaze dropped to my folder again. "What leverage do you have?" she asked. I slid the operating agreement across. Her eyes scanned it. When she hit the successor manager clause, her mouth tightened in something close to satisfaction. "They don't know about this," she said. "No," I said. "And your grandson is successor manager," she said. "Yes." Carmen sat back. "That's not just leverage," she said. "That's a wall." I nodded. Carmen pointed at the petition. "They're going to argue you're vulnerable," she said. "So we're going to show the court you're prepared." I waited. Carmen's voice lowered. And we're going to make them explain why they isolated you, she said. Why they pressured you. Why they tried to redirect assets to themselves. I looked down at the petition. Can we stop it? I asked. Carmen's eyes didn't flinch. We can fight it, she said. But to stop it cleanly, we need more than denial. We need proof of motive. I thought of Denise's texts, her voicemail, her condition. The sooner you sign, the sooner you can come home. I pulled out my phone and played Carmen the voicemail. Her expression didn't change while she listened, but when it ended, she held her pen so tightly her knuckles went pale. That, she said quietly, is motive. I nodded. Carmen looked at me. Do you have anything else? She asked. I did. At home, I had a small safe behind a painting in my study. Denise didn't know it existed because she'd never cared about my study. She cared about my accounts. Inside the safe were old documents, copies of checks Denise had helped write, the ones she'd signed with her own hand. I kept them because my brother, the judge, once told me something when my wife was sick and hospital billing departments started making mistakes. Keep copies. Keep dates. Keep receipts. People behave when you can prove they did not. Carmen watched me think. You have something, she said. I do, I said. But you didn't bring it, she said. Not yet, I replied. Carmen nodded once, slow. Good, she said, because now we build the double story. She leaned forward. They think you're contained, she said. They think you're scared. They think you'll sign to get out. I didn't speak. Carmen's mouth tightened. Let them think it, she said, for a little longer. I stared at the petition again. 14 days, I said. Carmen nodded. 14 days, she repeated. That's enough to set a trap that closes like a door. I left the clinic room with an appointment set for Saturday. Carmen would meet me again after I retrieved what was in my safe. As I walked back toward the dorm, my phone buzzed. A new message. Denise, we spoke to the shelter. They said you refused to sign releases. That's not a good look. Please don't embarrass us. Embarrass us. Not protect you. Not love you. Not worry. Embarrass us. I stood in the hallway, staring at the words. Then I typed back, slow and careful. I'm fine. I appreciate your concern. I added nothing else. I watched the little delivered notification. Then I slipped my phone away, because now Denise had what she wanted. A response. A sign of life. A reassurance she could show other people. He's fine. See, he thanked me. And while she polished her story, I tightened mine. The next step required one call. Not to Denise. Not to Lisa. To Noah. I waited until evening, when the shelter was loud enough that no one would notice. One old man, sitting near the vending machines, with a phone pressed to his ear. Noah answered on the second ring. Grandpa, he said, surprised. Hello, son, I said. There was a pause. Are you okay? He asked. I'm alive, I said, which is not the same thing as okay. His breathing changed. Mom said you were resting, he said carefully. Your mother is repeating what she's told, I replied. Denise told her. Noah said, and there was quiet anger behind it. I didn't feed it. Listen, I said. I need you to do something for me. Something that's legal. Something that's clean. Noah didn't interrupt. I have an operating agreement, I said. Your successor manager. Silence. Then what? He breathed. You heard me, I said. I put it in place 2 years ago. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Because you didn't need it, I said. Until now. His voice dropped. What's happening? He asked. They're preparing to file guardianship, I said. Denise is leading it. Your mother is following. Noah swore softly under his breath. Tell me what to do, he said. I closed my eyes for a moment, hearing the steadiness in him, the lack of panic. This was why I'd chosen him. Tomorrow, I said. Go to the address I'm going to text you. It's a UPS store. Ask for a box in my name. Bring your ID. What's in it? He asked. Copies, I said, of everything I need, including the operating agreement. Noah's voice sharpened. Grandpa, he said, are you in danger? I opened my eyes. Across the room, a staff member walked by, clipboard in hand, not looking at me. I'm in a story they wrote, I said, and I'm about to edit it. Noah swallowed. Okay, he said. I'll go. One more thing, I said. Anything, he replied. If Denise calls you, I said. You're polite. You say nothing. You don't argue. Noah hesitated. That's hard, he admitted. I know, I said. That's why I'm telling you. Politeness is a weapon when the other person is expecting emotion. Noah exhaled. Okay, he said again. Polite. Quiet. And Noah, I added. Yeah, 14 days, I said. That's what we have. 14 days, he repeated, voice turning colder. I hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, feeling the weight of the coming days. A man can lose a lot in a lifetime. His wife, his youth, his sense that family means safety. But the one thing a man should never lose is his ability to wait. Because waiting, real waiting, disciplined waiting, is what separates revenge from reaction. Reaction is loud. Revenge is paperwork. 2 days later, Saturday, Carmen met me again. I'd retrieved the contents of my safe, with the help of a shelter staff member who thought he was just taking an old man to get personal belongings. I'd been careful, slow, grateful. I'd let him carry my bag. I'd let him feel useful. Inside my folder now were copies of checks Denise had signed. Some were for groceries. Some were for home repairs. That never happened. One was a cashier's check payable to a credit card company, Denise's. Carmen spread them on the table like a dealer laying out cards. This is, she began. Forgery, I offered calmly. Carmen looked up at me. It's unauthorized signature at minimum, she said. Potential elder financial exploitation, depending on statute. I nodded. And it's a pattern, she said. Yes, I replied. Carmen's lips pressed together. I'm going to ask you something, she said. And I need the truth. Ask, I said. Do you want to reconcile? She said. Or do you want to end this? I didn't answer right away. Because if I'd been asked that 2 years ago, I might have chosen reconciliation. I might have believed in apologies. But apologies don't restore stolen time. They don't erase contempt. And Denise didn't do remorse. She did strategy. I wanted to stop, I said finally. Permanently. Carmen nodded, like she'd expected that answer. Then we do it clean, she said. Lawful. Proportional. I watched her carefully. What's proportional? I asked. Carmen tapped the checks. Guardianship petition gets opposed, she said. Hard. With evidence. We asked the court to appoint an independent evaluator. We asked for an accounting. We asked for restrictions on contact if needed. And Denise? I asked. Carmen's eyes didn't soften. We refer this to law enforcement or the county attorney if it meets thresholds, she said. Or we use it as leverage in civil court. But either way, concern gets examined under fluorescent light. I imagined Denise in a room where she couldn't cry her way out. Good. Carmen leaned closer. But, she said, we need one more thing. What? I asked. A recorded admission is gold, she said. Or at least a written one. Something where she says the quiet part out loud. I thought of her voicemail. The lawyer said if you don't sign, we may have to take further steps. It wasn't enough. It showed motive, but not the act. Carmen read my face. You can't bait her illegally, she said, like she knew what I was thinking. No entrapment nonsense. No tricking. But you can let her speak. I nodded once. Denise loved to speak, especially when she thought she was winning. Carmen slid the checks back into my folder. Here's the plan, she said. Your family will escalate. They'll try to pressure you to sign. They'll try to get you to lash out, so they can call you unstable. I said nothing. Carmen's eyes narrowed. You're going to stay calm, she said. You're going to request everything in writing. You're going to ask questions that sound reasonable. I understood. What's the clock? I asked. The moment they file, Carmen said. We'll be ready. And then she added, quietly, like she was laying down a blade. And if they file, we don't just defend, she said. We counter. That night, Denise called. I watched the phone ring until it stopped. Then she called again. On the third call, I answered. Hello, I said, voice steady. Her relief came through immediately, like she'd been holding her breath for days. Dad, she said warmly. Thank God. I've been so worried. I let silence sit for a beat. Yes, I said. I'm sure. Her voice tightened slightly. Are you being difficult with them? She asked. Maya said you won't sign the release. I prefer privacy, I said. Denise sighed, the sound of a woman burdened by someone else's stubbornness. Dad, she said, it makes you look like you have something to hide. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, maybe I do. Her pause was small but telling. What do you mean? She asked, careful now. I said, I've noticed some things. Denise's voice softened again, the way it does when someone is trying to calm a dog they don't fully trust. Like what? She asked. I'll ask you directly, I said. Did you sign checks for my account? Her inhale was sharp. Then she recovered quickly. Dad, she said, I helped you. You asked me to. I did, I said. Or you did. Denise's warmth cooled. Are you accusing me? She asked, and the performance shifted. Hurt, offended, righteous. I'm asking, I said. It's a simple question. She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, You're not well. There it was. The fourth betrayal. The pivot to incapacity the moment accountability appeared. I'm well enough to know what a signature looks like, I said. Denise's tone sharpened, the sweetness cracking. We have been protecting you, she said. You're spiraling. Lisa is devastated. Eric is furious. You're tearing this family apart. I didn't raise my voice. Denise, I said, tell me what you want. Silence. Then, in a quieter voice, she said, I want you home. And, I asked, and I want you to stop fighting us. She said. There it was again. Us. Like I was an enemy. What does stop fighting mean? I asked. Denise exhaled. It means you signed the beneficiary form, she said, impatience slipping through. So we can handle things. So there's no confusion. I leaned back against the wall near my bed, looking at the ceiling. Send it to me, I said. Her tone brightened instantly. Really? She asked. Yes, I said. Email it. Okay, she said quickly. I will. Thank you, Dad. This is the right thing. I let a beat pass. And Denise, I added. Yes, I want the version with your name already filled in, I said. The one you brought to the bank. Her voice caught. Why? She asked. Because, I said calmly. I want to see exactly what you expected me to sign. She was silent long enough that I could almost hear her thinking, recalculating, deciding how to rewrite the story. Then she said softly, Dad, you're making me uncomfortable. I kept my voice even. I'm sure, I said. I hung up, and I stared at my phone, waiting, because the next move would tell me what she feared more, the truth, or the appearance of truth. Within 10 minutes, an email arrived. Not from Denise. From Lisa. Subject line, please cooperate. Attached, a blank beneficiary form. Blank. No names. No handwriting. Just an empty template. Denise was careful now. That meant she'd felt a trap. Good. Because when a person like Denise feels a trap, she doesn't retreat. She escalates. And escalation makes mistakes. The next day, Eric finally called. My son's voice was tight, exhausted. Dad, he said, like the word itself cost him something. What the hell are you doing? I closed my eyes. Good to hear your voice, I said. Don't do that, he snapped. Don't act calm like you're above this. Denise says you're refusing help. I'm refusing control, I said. Eric exhaled hard. She's trying to keep you safe, he said. You can't live alone anymore. I've lived alone for 2 years, I said. You visited twice. That's not fair, he said. It's accurate, I replied. He went quiet. Then he said, There's a hearing coming. I didn't react. I know, I said. Eric hesitated. How do you know? He asked. I could hear it then, the first crack in his certainty. Because, I said, Denise isn't as careful as she thinks. His voice lowered. Dad, he said, if you fight this, it'll get ugly. I stared at the shelter floor, scuffed linoleum worn down by other people's crises. It already is, I said. Eric's tone shifted, softer now. What do you want? He asked. The question sounded sincere, but it was also a test. He wanted to know if I wanted something unreasonable, so he could justify siding against me. I want to come home, I said. To my house. I want my accounts left alone. And I want Denise to stop signing my name. Eric's breath caught. What? He asked. She signed checks, I said. More than one. Dad, he began. Ask her, I said. Eric went silent again. I could almost see him. Phone pressed to his ear, looking at Denise across the room, her face already preparing the right expression. She wouldn't, he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. She did, I said. Then I added, quietly, like I was setting a stone in place. And I have copies. Eric didn't speak. I didn't push. Silence is pressure when the truth is heavy enough. Dad, he said after a long moment, Denise says you're confused because of grief. I let that sit. My wife had been dead 2 years. My grief, I said, doesn't sign checks. Eric swallowed. Just don't embarrass us, he said finally, and there it was, the family motto Denise had taught them. Embarrass us. Not hurt us. Not steal from us. Embarrass us. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, I said. I'm trying to survive my own family. He hung up soon after, voice strained, and I sat there calm, because I'd gotten what I needed. Confirmation. Eric knew about the hearing, which meant Denise had moved from persuasion to formal control. The clock was real. 14 days was now less, and the next betrayal would come with legal stationery. 3 days later, Maya approached me at breakfast. Her face was tense. Mr. Hale, she said quietly, you have visitors. I didn't look surprised. Who? I asked. She hesitated. Your daughter, she said. And another man. He says he's with the court. I stood slowly, folded my napkin, and placed it on the table. In the lobby, Lisa stood near the intake desk, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Next to her was a man in a blazer holding a clipboard. Denise wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. Denise preferred to move the pieces without being seen moving them. Lisa's eyes met mine and filled with tears instantly. Dad, she whispered, please, please don't fight this. I looked at her, really looked. My daughter was 52 years old and still acting like she needed permission to breathe. The man in the blazer stepped forward. Thomas Hale, he asked. Yes, I said. I'm a court investigator, he said. We're here to assess your situation. He held out a paper. Notice of filing, he said. My eye scanned it. Emergency guardianship petition filed. Hearing in 10 days. Not 14 anymore. 10. The clock tightened. I looked up at Lisa. Denise filed, I said. Lisa's lips trembled. She says it's for your safety, she whispered. I turned to the investigator. Who filed? I asked. Denise Hale, he said. I nodded once. Then I reached into my folder and pulled out a single page. A typed letter. Signed by Carmen Ruiz, J.D. Notice of representation. Opposition to emergency guardianship. Request for accounting. Request for independent evaluator. The investigator's eyebrows lifted when he saw the attorney letterhead. Lisa's face froze. What is that? She asked, voice small. It's my voice, I said calmly. On paper. The investigator cleared his throat. Sir, he said, you have counsel? Yes, I said. He shifted, suddenly less certain. He'd expected a confused old man in a shelter. He'd found a prepared one. Lisa stared at me like I'd betrayed her. You hired a lawyer, she whispered. I didn't hire, I said. I asked for help. Lisa's tears spilled. Denise wasn't here to control the narrative, so Lisa's emotions went where they wanted. You're making this so hard, she said, voice breaking. Everyone is watching us. I held her gaze. Good, I said quietly. Let them. Her breath caught like I'd slapped her. The investigator looked between us, uncomfortable. Mr. Hale, he said. We still need to ask some questions. Ask, I said. He began the standard ones. Date, location, medical history, finances. I answered clearly. Then he asked, do you believe your family is trying to harm you? I didn't rush. Harm was a word with sharp edges. It needed care. I believe, I said slowly. They are trying to control me for reasons that have nothing to do with my health. The investigator scribbled something down. Lisa shook her head, whispering, "No, no, no." I leaned slightly toward her. "Lisa," I said gently, "did Denise tell you she filled in her own name on my beneficiary form?" Lisa blinked rapidly. "What?" she whispered. I kept my voice low, so the investigator had to lean in to hear, making him part of it. "Did she?" I asked. Lisa's face drained. I don't know," she stammered. "Ask her," I said. Lisa's eyes darted to the side, like she could already see Denise's reaction. The investigator straightened. "Sir," he said, "do you have evidence of financial exploitation?" I met his gaze. "Yes," I said, "and my attorney will submit it." Lisa made a small sound, half sob, half gasp. The investigator's tone changed. "Mr. Hale," he said, "I'll note that." Then, because he was human and humans love to tidy uncomfortable things, he added, "The court will decide." I nodded once. "Yes," I said, "it will." Lisa reached for my hand then, desperate. "Dad," she whispered, "please. Just sign what she wants. Then it can go away." I looked down at her hand on mine. My daughter's hand felt smaller than it used to. Or maybe I'd just gotten used to the weight of betrayal. "No," I said quietly. Lisa's eyes squeezed shut. "Why are you doing this?" she cried. I leaned closer, voice still calm. "Because," I said, "if I give her what she wants, you'll spend the rest of your life asking permission to exist." Lisa froze. The investigator cleared his throat again, uncomfortable with the intimacy of truth. He finished his questions quickly after that. Before he left, he handed me a card. "If you need to contact the court," he said. I took it. Then I turned back to Lisa, who stood shaking. "Go home," I said softly, "and tell Denise the court will see everything." Lisa's voice was barely audible. "She'll hate me," she whispered. I looked at her a long moment. "She already uses you," I said. "The difference is whether you keep volunteering." Lisa flinched like I'd struck nerve instead of skin. Then she turned and walked out of the shelter without looking back. That night, Denise posted on Facebook. Not directly about me. She was smarter than that. She posted a photo of a candle and a Bible verse about honoring your elders. The caption read, "Some seasons are heavy, but we do what's right even when it hurts." People commented hearts and prayers. Denise replied with gratitude. She was building her jury. I watched it all through my phone, the way you watch a fire you plan to contain. Then I sent the screenshot to Carmen. Her reply came in one line. "Good. Public statements can be exhibits." Denise was so obsessed with being seen as good that she didn't realize she was documenting her own manipulation. The next morning, Noah texted me. "Got the box. Read everything. Tell me what's next." I stared at the message a long moment. My grandson was now holding the quiet money. Denise still didn't know. And the hearing was in 9 days. I typed back. "Next. You become the man she can't talk over. Carmen will call you." Then I put the phone away and sat on my bed, breathing slowly. Because now came the slow burn. Now came the part where they celebrated early. Denise would tell everyone she'd filed guardianship for my safety. She would tell people I'd refused help. She would tell them she'd tried. And all the while, behind her smile, I would be moving assets into structures she couldn't reach, reinforcing authority she didn't understand, and preparing documents that would not care how many candles she posted on social media. She thought she was taking my life apart. She didn't realize she'd given me the cleanest reason in the world to rewrite my will. A week before the hearing, Carmen arranged a formal capacity evaluation with a licensed clinician, independent, court-respected. The appointment was on paper, with signatures, dates, and receipts. Denise would hate it, because it meant she couldn't claim confusion without contradicting a professional. That same day, Carmen filed a motion requesting that any temporary guardianship be denied and that a neutral third party be appointed if necessary, not a family member with a direct financial interest. Denise would hate that too, because Denise didn't want care. She wanted control. But Denise's worst mistake wasn't filing the petition. It was assuming I had nothing left to take from her. She'd focused on my brokerage account and my house. She hadn't asked about the LLC. She hadn't asked about the operating agreement. She hadn't asked who my successor manager was. and she definitely hadn't asked what would happen if I decided that family was no longer the right word for the people trying to erase me. 2 days before the hearing, Denise finally showed her teeth. She came to the shelter in person. Not with Lisa, not with Eric, with a woman in a crisp suit and a leather folder, her attorney. Denise's hair was perfect. Her makeup was soft, concerned. She looked like a magazine version of Devotion. She spotted me in the lobby and walked over like she owned the air. "Dad," she said, voice honeyed. "Thank God you're okay." I didn't stand. I didn't offer my cheek. I looked at her attorney. "Who are you?" I asked. The attorney extended a hand. "Rachel Kim," she said, "counsel for Denise Hale." I didn't shake her hand. I nodded once. "Thomas Hale," I said. "I have counsel." Rachel's eyes narrowed slightly. "Ms. Ruiz," she said, as if the name tasted unfamiliar. "Yes," I replied. Denise smiled, but her eyes were sharp. "We don't have to do this the hard way," she said softly. "We can settle this as a family." I looked at her. "What's your definition of settle?" I asked. Denise's smile didn't falter. "You come home," she said, "and we manage things for you. And in exchange," I said, "I sign my money to you." Denise's eyes flashed irritation. "Dad," she said, voice tightening, "you're being dramatic." I leaned forward slightly. "No," I said quietly. "You are." Rachel cleared her throat. "Mr. Hale," she began, "given your current placement, the court will be concerned about your—" "My placement is temporary," I said. Rachel's lips pressed together. Denise stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing something intimate. "If you fight this," she said, "people are going to think you're unstable. The judge will see you as uncooperative. Do you really want your grandson seeing you like that?" There. She'd finally said Noah's name. A fishing line cast into the water. I kept my face still. "You've spoken to Noah?" I asked. Denise smiled slightly. "Not yet," she said, "but I can." I nodded once. "I'd like everything you're proposing," I said calmly. "In writing." Rachel lifted her folder. "We have documents," she said. Denise's voice softened again. "See," she said, "we're trying to make this easy." Rachel slid a packet toward me through the intake desk cutout, using the shelter's glass like a neutral barrier. I flipped through it slowly. It was a family agreement. A voluntary guardianship arrangement. Power of attorney. Healthcare proxy. Financial management authority. Denise everywhere. Denise as agent. Denise as decision-maker. Denise as gatekeeper. I stopped on the page where it stated that I would reside in a care facility as determined by the agent. I looked up at Denise. "So you're not bringing me home," I said. "You're moving me." Denise's smile twitched. "This is for stability," she said. "For you," I replied. Her eyes hardened. "You're not well enough to live alone," she said, dropping the honey. Rachel watched me carefully, like she was trying to gauge whether I'd explode. I didn't. I turned the packet to the signature page. The signature line for me was blank. The signature line for Denise was already signed, in ink. I stared at it. Then I looked at Denise. "You signed before I did," I said. Denise's chin lifted. "It's just to speed things up," she said, irritation showing. I nodded once. Then I picked up the pen from the desk. Denise's eyes widened slightly, hope flickering. Rachel's posture eased. Denise leaned in. "Thank you," she breathed. I didn't correct her. I let her believe it. I signed. Not my name. I signed received only. Then I slid the packet back through the cutout. Denise blinked. "What is that?" she snapped, the mask cracking. "It's what it says," I replied calmly. "I received your proposal." Rachel's face tightened. Denise's cheeks flushed. "You're humiliating us," she hissed, loud enough for Maya to hear behind the glass. I leaned back, voice still even. "You came to a shelter to serve me paperwork," I said. "You humiliated yourself." Denise's eyes went wide with fury. Rachel touched Denise's arm, a subtle warning. Denise's jaw worked. Then she leaned toward me, voice low and vicious. "You think you're smarter than me," she whispered, "but you're an old man in a shelter. Everyone sees that." I looked at her, calm as stone. Everyone sees what you showed them, I said quietly. Soon they'll see what you hid. Denise's breath hitched. Rachel snapped her folder shut. We'll see you in court, Rachel said, voice clipped. Denise stared at me one last time, eyes promising revenge like it was her right. Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots on the tile. Maya watched them go, face pale. When the door closed, she looked at me. What did you just do? She whispered. I held my folder against my chest. I gave her something, I said. What? Maya asked. I looked at the glass, at my reflection. An old man, calm, contained. A mistake, I said, because Denise had said something in that lobby she didn't realize mattered. An old man in a shelter. In court, she would use that phrase as proof of incapacity. But in my hands, it would become proof of isolation. And isolation, when orchestrated by someone with financial motive, has a name in law that judges do not like. 2 days later, the day before the hearing, Carmen met me one last time to prepare. Noah joined by phone. Carmen's desk was covered in labeled exhibits, bank statements, check copies, Denise's voicemail transcript, Denise's Facebook post screenshots, shelter intake records showing I refused a blanket release, and the operating agreement naming Noah successor manager. Carmen looked at me. Tomorrow, she said. They will come in confident. I nodded. They will paint you as confused, she said. I nodded again. And then, Carmen said, turning to Noah on speaker, you will speak. Noah's voice was steady. Yes, he said. Carmen looked at me. Do you trust him? She asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said. Carmen nodded once. Good, she said, because the court will see a young man stepping up without greed. I thought of Denise, her perfume, her Bible verse posts. Greed loves to dress itself in virtue, but virtue doesn't sign someone else's name on checks. Carmen looked down at the last exhibit, a new will. I'd signed it the day before, with proper witnesses and notarization. Denise was not included. Lisa was included modestly, with a trust structure that protected her from manipulation. Eric was included modestly, with conditions tied to independent counseling and financial education, because I still loved my son, even if I no longer trusted him. The bulk of my estate, including the LLC and the house, was set to go into a trust controlled by Noah as trustee, with specific instructions. Housing for me, then eventual distribution to Noah and charitable causes that mattered to my wife. Proportional, final, lawful. Carmen looked at me. Are you ready? She asked. I thought of my wife, of the kitchen table where Denise had sat with her neat tears. I thought of Lisa's shaking hands. I thought of Eric saying, don't embarrass us. And I thought of Maya behind the glass, saying Judge Hale used to say a signature is a confession. Yes, I said. The next morning, they transported me to the courthouse, not in handcuffs, not like a criminal, but escorted like a fragile item. Denise met us on the courthouse steps, dressed in soft colors, hair perfect. Lisa stood behind her, face drawn, eyes swollen. Eric stood beside them, jaw clenched, avoiding my gaze. Denise's attorney, Rachel, carried a folder thick with confidence. Denise approached me with her practiced sadness. Dad, she said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. I'm so glad you're here. I didn't answer. Carmen arrived beside me, calm, professional, carrying her own folder like a weapon made of paper. Denise's eyes flicked to Carmen, irritation flashing. Of course, Denise murmured, like Carmen was an inconvenience instead of a threat. We entered the courthouse. The hearing room was smaller than people expect. No drama, just fluorescent lights, plain carpet, and a judge at the bench who'd seen every kind of family lie. The judge looked down at the file. Thomas Hale, he said. Yes, I replied. Petitioner is Denise Hale, the judge said. Denise stood, posture perfect. Yes, Your Honor, she said, voice trembling with virtue. The judge looked at her. Allegations of incapacity, he said, and concern for elder safety. Yes, Denise said, nodding, tears forming like they were scheduled. Rachel began to speak, laying out the story. My decline, my paranoia, my refusal of help, my placement in the shelter, my erratic financial behavior. She made it sound clinical. Denise made it sound loving. Lisa cried softly at the right moments. Eric stared at the floor. The judge listened. Then he turned to Carmen. "Ms. Ruiz," he said. Carmen stood. "Your Honor," she said. "This petition is not about safety. It's about money. And we can prove it." Denise's face tightened, just slightly. Carmen began to lay out exhibits, one by one calmly. Denise's voicemail referencing signing as a condition of returning home. The beneficiary form history. How Denise attempted to name herself. The checks, signed by Denise, drawn from my account for her personal obligations. The shelter intake records showing Denise contacted staff asking if I was cooperative. The Facebook post showing public narrative management. The judge's expression shifted as the pattern formed in his mind. Not a confused old man, a controlled one. Then Carmen said, "And Your Honor, if the court has concerns about Mr. Hale's capacity, we welcome independent evaluation. We have already arranged one, completed yesterday, by a licensed clinician, who found Mr. Hale competent to manage his affairs." Rachel stiffened. Denise's tears paused, like a faucet turned off. The judge held out his hand. "Let me see that," he said. Carmen handed it over. The judge read. Silence stretched. Denise's breathing grew shallow. Lisa's sobbing quieted. Eric finally looked up at me. The judge set the report down. "Petitioner," he said, looking at Denise, "why did you not request independent evaluation before filing an emergency petition?" Denise blinked rapidly. "We were," she began, voice wobbling. "We were just trying to act quickly. He was refusing help." The judge's tone sharpened. "He is refusing to sign financial documents naming you as agent." The judge corrected, flipping a page. Denise's face flushed. "That's not," she began. Carmen spoke again. "Your Honor," she said, "the operating agreement for Mr. Hale's LLC designates his grandson, Noah Hale, as successor manager in the event of incapacity proceedings." Rachel's eyes narrowed. Denise turned slightly, confused. "What LLC?" she whispered, not realizing the microphone caught it. The judge's eyebrows lifted. Denise's attorney looked at her. A quick glance that said, "You didn't tell me this." Carmen continued, calm. "Mr. Hale's rental property income is managed through that LLC." Carmen said. The petitioner did not disclose it in her filing because she did not know about it. Denise swallowed hard. The judge looked directly at Denise. "Ms. Hale," he said, "did you conduct a full accounting of Mr. Hale's assets before filing for guardianship?" Denise's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Rachel stepped in quickly. "Your Honor," she said, "the petitioner acted in good faith based on the information available." "Information available to whom?" the judge asked, voice sharp now. "Because I'm looking at unauthorized checks." Denise's eyes widened. Rachel's posture stiffened. Carmen said, "We are requesting that the petition be dismissed and that the court order an accounting and refer the matter to the appropriate authorities for investigation of potential financial exploitation." Denise's face went pale. Lisa made a small sound, strangled. Eric's jaw clenched. The judge leaned back, looking at Denise like she was seeing her clearly for the first time. "Ms. Hale," he said, "you sought control over this man's finances while living in his home and pressuring him to sign documents benefiting you." Denise shook her head, tears spilling now, but they looked different, less controlled, more desperate. "No," she cried. "I was trying to help. He's not himself." The judge's voice stayed cold. "Then explain the checks," he said. Denise looked at Lisa. Lisa looked away. Denise looked at Eric. Eric's face hardened, and for the first time, he didn't rush to save her. Rachel whispered something to Denise, urgent. Denise shook her head, panicking. He told me to." Denise stammered. "He asked me to help." The judge looked at me. "Mr. Hale," he said, "did you authorize these signatures?" I met his gaze, calm. "No, Your Honor," I said. The judge's eyes returned to Denise. Silence. Then the judge spoke, each word deliberate. "Petition is denied," he said. "Emergency guardianship is not granted." Denise let out a sound like air leaving a punctured tire. The judge continued. "I am ordering a formal accounting," he said, "and I am referring the matter for investigation." Rachel's face went tight, professional mask straining. Denise's shoulders sagged. Lisa covered her mouth, sobbing. Eric stared at Denise like he was seeing his marriage for the first time. The judge looked at me again. "Mr. Hale," he said, "do you have a safe place to reside?" "Yes," I said. "My home," I added. The judge nodded. "Then this court will not be used to remove you from it," he said. Carmen sat down beside me, expression steady. Denise stood trembling, her public story collapsing under the weight of documentation. As we left the courtroom, Denise tried one last time. She rushed toward me in the hallway, eyes wild. "You did this to me," she hissed. I stopped and looked at her. Her makeup had smeared. Her hair wasn't perfect anymore. She looked like what she was. "I didn't do anything to you," I said quietly. "I stopped you from doing it to me." Rachel grabbed Denise's arm, pulling her back. Carmen stepped between us, calm and unyielding. "Do not speak to him," Carmen said, voice flat. "All communication goes through counsel." Denise's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Lisa approached me, trembling. "Dad," she whispered. "I didn't know." I looked at my daughter. I believed she hadn't known everything, but she'd known enough. "You didn't ask," I said softly. Lisa flinched. I didn't comfort her. Not yet. Comfort without change is just permission. Eric stood a few feet away, staring at the wall. "Dad," he said quietly. I turned to him. He looked older than he had a month ago. "Is it true?" he asked, voice low. "About the checks?" I held his gaze. "Yes," I said. Eric's face tightened. He looked at Denise, who stood with Rachel, shaking. Then he looked back at me. "I'm sorry," he said, and it sounded real, which almost made it worse. I nodded once. "Be sorry enough to do something different," I said. Then I walked away. Because justice, served cold, doesn't require speeches. It requires endings. Within a week, Denise's image began to crack in the places she cared about most. The church ladies who'd commented hearts went quiet when subpoenas arrived. The friends who'd praised her devotion stopped answering calls. Eric moved into the guest room. Lisa stopped posting. And Noah, quiet, steady Noah, met me at my front door when I came home, keys in hand, house still mine, air still familiar. He hugged me carefully, like he was afraid I'd disappear. "I've got you," he said. I nodded. "I know," I said, and in the quiet of my own living room, I opened my folder one last time. I looked at the line where Denise had wanted my signature. Then I closed it and put it away. Because the real moral isn't that family can betray you. It's that you don't have to let them keep the benefits of it. Some people think forgiveness is the highest form of love. I think clarity is. And the coldest justice is simply refusing to sign your life away to someone who only loved you as an asset.